will not need a huge backpack full of photography gear with tons of lenses to create amazing looking travel photos. And this is exactly what I want to talk about in this video: minimalist travel photography and things that I've learned over the years. So let's dive right in. Hello my friends and welcome to this video today. So today I want to talk about travel photography, and travel photography is really the field of photography where most people find their entry into the world of photography in the first place. This is what happened to me many years ago. I bought my first DSLR for traveling, for taking amazing travel photos, and as I said, I believe this is something that a lot of people do. And over this past 15 years basically, I really found out a lot of things that I could improve on, and things that really were more a burden to me than something that helped me improve. And this is what I want to talk about today. And I want to begin with point number one of this video: my camera and lens setup for landscape photography, because I really learned a lot from the things that I brought on my trips in the first place. So my current landscape photography setup is built around a Sony a7R IV camera, which currently works really good for me because of the high megapixel count. And this might sound a little bit strange to you right now, because we all know that megapixels in your camera, they will not say anything about the quality of the photos that this very camera can take. And this is true, but let me explain more on that. But first I have to tell you my lens selection, and then I can tell you why the megapixels are important to me. So my main go-to lens for travel photography is this one right here. This is a 24 to 105 millimeter zoom lens, and it is super versatile. You can do so much with it. You have the 24 millimeter range, which is pretty far angled, and 105 millimeters, you are pretty far zoomed in, and you have basically every important focal length that you can think of in between. And this one is an amazing lens. It is pretty compact. It is pretty cheap as well. I made a video about this very lens a couple of weeks ago. I've linked you that video somewhere up around here. Check that out as well if you're interested in that. But this is, as I said, my go-to lens, and you can basically put this on your camera in the morning and shoot with it the whole day. However, this is also the point where the huge megapixel count of the Sony a7R IV, it's over 60 megapixels, comes into place. Because 105mm, while it is pretty far zoomed in already, you sometimes have situations where you want to have more zoom capabilities. And you can just switch lenses, but this will take time. Or you can crop in later, and with a 60 megapixel photo you have so much detail in your picture that you can crop in a ton. You can basically extend the zoom range from 100mm to like 2 or maybe even 300mm. It is in digital zoom, obviously. However, it will not matter. You will not see a difference, and this is just amazing. And this is the main reason why I love this high megapixel count so much on the Sony a7R Mark IV. However, when I reach my limit, even with the digital zoom later on, I most of the time, not always, bring a second lens, and this is a 70 to 200mm. I have it right here. It is again super versatile, not super expensive, and just an amazing lens. And I made a video about these two lenses also a couple of weeks ago. Check that out as well if you want to, where I just talked about these two lenses in more detail. And if you apply the same principle of digital zooming in later in the post-processing of your pictures, you can really do so much with it. Like for example, when you have a 200mm photo on a 60 megapixel full frame camera, you can really zoom it into an equivalent of like 400mm or something like that. You get in the range of super telezoom there, and you can even do something like wildlife photography with it, with a small lens and a compact setup, which is just amazing, super versatile again. So you can basically see where this video is going here, because I really like minimalist travel photography. And why I like this, I want to talk about in the next point. So as I said, what I really learned and what is the essential message of this video is that minimalism will bring you further in travel photography. If you bring everything that you have, this might become more of a burden than an improvement to your photos. For obvious reasons, a lot of gear is really heavy. And if you walk around in a city or in nature the whole day, it will become really heavy, really fast, and you will get back pain. And this is really something that you want to avoid, I believe. So keep it light, keep it simple, but not just for weight, because if you are on location and you have a ton of different gear that you can choose from, it will get really stressful really fast, at least for me. And you know, it should be something, the travel photography, that should be enjoyable to you and not a burden or something that stresses you out. And another thing is that switching lenses will take a lot of time, and sometimes you will just miss out. You will miss the shot while switching the lenses, and better you have a photo with a not super perfect lens for the situation than have no photo at all. And yeah, this is also a reason why I believe bringing less will give you more in the end. And obviously the lenses I just talked about, they are perfect for me at the moment and the style of photography I do, but you might want to change this out. A lot of people really enjoy shooting with a, for example, 35mm prime lens, which is an amazing lens, and I can really understand that. So this is obviously also something that you have to decide for yourself, but the general message, keep it simple. Let's talk about accessories now, because even though you want to keep it simple, you will need some accessories for your camera in order to work the whole day. For example, batteries. And this is also something where I can tell you, don't bring like 10 batteries for your camera. You will most likely not need it, especially when you follow the tips and tricks I will tell you later in this video. Modern cameras, they have pretty good battery life, I feel like. And with just 2 batteries, you can basically spend the whole day. I never ran into issues there. So I always have 1 battery in my camera and 1 spare battery. But what I also bring is a power bank. And with this power bank, you can not just charge your phone, for example, you can also charge the camera battery that is not inside the camera right now. So you can basically extend the battery life of your camera really far without bringing too much little pieces there that you can lose or yeah, maybe distract you. So again, 1 spare battery, I believe, is a pretty good idea. Another thing that I bring are filters. And when it comes to filters, it will get distracting again really fast. So one filter that I always bring is a polarization filter, because with a polarization filter, you can create looks that you will not be able to recreate in post-production of your photo. So this is something that you have to apply on scene. And the polarization filter, it will not darken your image all that much, and you can just turn basically the polarization off by twisting the filter. So you can leave this on your camera basically the whole day. Another filter that I sometimes, not always, bring are ND filters. And again, with ND filters, you can create certain looks for certain pictures that will be really hard to recreate in post-production. However, again, this is an additional step. You have to screw the filter on your camera, which will take time. So I not always enjoy doing that, but sometimes it's really cool. So I always try to bring at least 1 or 2 ND filters. They are not heavy, they are not big, so you can just put them in your backpack. And if you happen to need one, you can screw them on and use them. Another essential accessory that I use a lot of times, it's not really an accessory at all, it is a drone. And I made a whole video series about drones here on this channel, and I just love these things. Drones are super versatile. You cannot use them anywhere. For example, when you go to cities and do city trips, you will most likely not need a drone because you will not be allowed to fly them, at least here in Europe. But when it comes to flying this drone, I really try to focus myself on one thing at a time. For example, focus myself on drone photography or videography, or I focus myself on taking pictures with my camera. Because if you have both at the same time, you will be very stressed very fast, and it's just not that enjoyable, I feel like. And also the results will not be so great because you have to manage a lot of things at the same time, which is just not that enjoyable. So let's now talk about photography on location and some tips and tricks that I found over the years there. And this is a really extensive topic. I might make a video in the future about it, but these are the most important things that I've learned. And the first thing has to do with famous Instagram or social media spots where you have seen a ton of photos before, and you should not skip these places altogether. Some of them are amazing, but don't expect too much from them. Most of the time there will be a lot of people, and most of the time these people will have taken so many photos that it will be really difficult for you and me to find new compositions, for example, and new angles, because when there are tens of thousands of people a day, which takes hundreds of thousands of photos, every possible angle will have been shot by someone already. So what I would recommend instead is just looking around and get a sense and a feeling for, the place you are, and try to capture small details, emotion. And these are the pictures that you will most likely connect to the most after you're at home again. because these pictures, they tell personal stories. You know, you captured basically emotions with them, or at least I try to do that. And these pictures will most likely be much more worth to you than, for example, a picture from a famous Instagram location that you've seen thousands of times before on social media. Another thing that I've realized is that it will not make much sense to take thousands of pictures, you know, just turning around, taking a picture of everything. It will most likely not work out, and these pictures, they will rot away on your hard drive, never to be seen again. So I would recommend be more thoughtful about what you shoot. And even if you just bring home like 10 pictures from a 2-week vacation, but these 10 pictures are amazing and emotional and beautiful. You will look at this picture again and again later on in your life, and yeah, this is something that is much more worth than having thousands of photos from everything. So be more thoughtful about the things that you shoot. So in the last part of this video, I want to talk about smartphone photography, because the most minimalistic setup that you can basically think of is a smartphone, and they can create amazing looking photos nowadays. We all know that. For example, me, I have my camera with me most of the time. It's not always the case. I give you an example here. A couple of weeks back, I went to the Canary Islands for landscape photography, but this one afternoon I was just chilling at the pool basically, and I looked around and I saw this one scene with this wall and, you know, this light pole, and the light was just perfect. And I did not have my camera. The camera was in the apartment, so I took out my smartphone, my iPhone, and I just took a few pictures. And one thing that I always try to do when I shoot with my smartphones is to use the zoom camera, because, you know, this wide angle shot with your smartphone, it always feels like a smartphone nowadays, because we are so used to this focal length being the standard camera for smartphones. However, I still tried to capture the same scene with my main camera like 30 minutes later, and it was totally gone. The light was different and it just didn't feel right anymore. So I only had the picture with my iPhone, and I've showed you the picture before in this video. It is this one here. I don't know if you have recognized this one as a smartphone picture in the first place, but it is definitely shot on an iPhone. So again, use the things you have, and the best camera is always the one that you have on hand. And in this case, it was my iPhone, and I took the shot, and I believe it looked pretty cool. So this is something that I've learned also over the years. If you just have your smartphone, use it and don't miss out, because it can create amazing looking photos as well. This brings us to the end of today's video, and obviously when it comes to things like travel photography, you will always learn something new. So I'm genuinely interested, what is your travel photography setup, and what are things that you have learned over the years? You can write them in the comments below, that would be amazing. And if you have enjoyed watching this video, you can also give it a like, and maybe even a subscription to this channel. That would be amazing. But for now, I wish you a great day. I wish you a great week, and I hope I see you in next week's video. So see you then, and goodbye.